Okay.
Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have here Judy Foreman, an acclaimed author, has penned several notable books. Among them are A Nation in Pain, The Global Pain Crisis, and Exercise is Medicine, all brought to you by the Oxford University Press. She ventured into the world of fiction with her novel it's the acronym CRISPRD in 2022, courtesy of Skyhorse.
Bird.
Chris Bird. Okay, I wanted to make sure. I'm like, oh, I better not say the wrong thing. Courtesy of Skyhorse Publishing, and shared personal insights in her new memoir, Let the More Loving One Be Me, under the banner of She Writes Press. For over 2 decades, Judy's journalistic prowess has showcased as a staff writer at the Boston Globe. Many of those years saw her in the role of a health columnist, with her impactful columns being featured in prominent publications like Los Angeles Times, Dallas Morning News, and Baltimore Sun, just to name a few. An alumna of Wellesley College, Judy graduated Phi Beta Kappa in 1966, subsequently dedicating 3 years to the Peace Corps in Brazil. She further enriched her academic credentials with a master's degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Judy's affiliations are numerous and distinguished. She has served as a lecturer on medicine and fellow in the medical ethics at Harvard Medical School, a Knight Science Journalism Fellow at MIT, and was a senior fellow at the Schuster Institute for Investigative Journalism at Brandeis. adding, adding to her versatility, Judy hosted a popular weekly call-in radio show on healthtalk.com. A testament to her journalistic excellence, Judy holds over 50 journalism accolades. Notably, she received the prestigious 1998 George Foster Peabody Award for co-penning a heart-wrenching video documentary about a young woman's battle with breast cancer. Additionally, her book, A Nation in Pain, earned her the 2015 Science and Society Award from the National Association of Science Writers. Wow, Judy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You accomplished so much here. And wow, it's just an honor to have you on my show today. And I was just talking to you earlier about the new book that was just published yesterday. And I was sharing with you that I had some trauma in my life. I had a father figure, that sexually abused me. Now, nobody knew, not even my mother, and it was kept secret for so many years. Now, this happened from the ages of 6 to 12 years old. And then it came out finally during an intervention meeting with all my siblings, and my mom was there, and they wanted to know what was wrong with me. Why am I misbehaving so much? Why am I doing drugs? Why was I drinking alcohol so much? And I said, well, probably the reason why I'm like this and so destructive is because I was abused when I was a little girl. And then everyone was like silent and didn't know what to say. And then I was even questioned by my mom a little bit further. And I'm just like, well, I just told her everything. But for some reason, she still didn't believe me quite. And that was very hurtful. So I would love for you just to share a little bit about your book, because I know you've had this career in like health journalism, covering topics on like societal impact. But what prompted the transition from these subjects to penning such an intimate memoir about your life?
Well, that's quite a quite a question. Um, yeah, it was definitely a departure from what I had been writing all along, which was basically science and medicine. Um, and I didn't set out to write a book. I'm in this organization is one of the lifelong learning things for people a little bit later in life than you are. It's at Harvard, the Harvard Institute for Learning and Retirement, and I took a course in memoir writing, and I loved it. And I kept going week after week, year after year. And pretty soon I had a whole collection of memoirs. Some were serious, like the one about my father's abusiveness. Some were hilarious, some were romantic, some were kind of scientific, some were about my journalism career. So it's all over the place, but I decided to put them together in one book. And I guess the theme that you could say unites it all is kind of a search for the truth of what happened in my family. And as a journalist, a search for truth on many issues, including scientific truth. So it just kind of fell together. Well, it didn't really fall together. I put it together with some thought and effort. But yeah, it was kind of a story of the emerging of a person after a very destructive family, maybe not destructive in the same way as yours, but somewhat similar. I'm actually curious about yours too.
Yeah. So I was sharing with you that I am just starting to write a book because I had all these messages saying, write books, write books. Everybody like watching these videos, make sure you write a book. And I'm like, are they talking to me? And I felt that, yes, it was a very traumatic scenario. I didn't really know what I was going through because like I said, I was 6 years old. Like at 6, you don't know what is like really a good touch and what you're supposed to be doing. But those lewd acts and everything, and having to revisit that in my writing, it was just like wow, how do I remember all like every like detail to the detail even? And it was something that I've always wanted to like forget and ignore, but I've learned so much about how to, well, now that I'm sober, I've been sober about 6 years. I turned to alcohol to as my comfort to make me feel better, to numb myself. And I was getting into these horrible relationships. I was just not myself. And it wasn't until I stopped drinking alcohol that I was like, okay, who is Gina inside? Because who is this beautiful soul that is ready to come out finally after 30 something years later. And but she's still ready to come out. And so I had to do a lot of work. I got a coach, I got a mentor, and I started going to church. Like that was a big one for me because I was never religious, I was never spiritual, and I just was really just meeting different people that just uplifted my spirit and just made me feel so good inside. And from there I was just like, okay, meeting all these other women who are entrepreneurs, and then they said, oh well, you need to get into this, you need to do this. And so like I feel like because I stopped drinking and stopped numbing and had to face my fear, which, and going back to whatever I was remembering back in my childhood, I had to face it, and then I had to move forward. And I'm noticing now as I'm writing, it's like therapy for me. And I think our messages need to be put out there because a lot of people feel like they do not have a voice to say, hey, I need help, or this is what happened to me. How do I heal that childhood trauma that we're going through? And so that's like a little bit of my story. But I feel so much better that it's come out and I can share it with everybody.
That's great. That's great. There's something I could read you more, but there's something that what you said sort of makes me want to read. Do you have time for a little
Oh,
short?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Well, just for starters, my father, when I was a teenager, age 12, so a little older than you, he would come into my room every night with just a t-shirt on. And he would always say he just wanted to talk, but I thought it was going to be rape every single night of my adolescence. He never did touch me, but I grew up petrified. I didn't know any night it might be real rape. So it ended up being kind of a psychological rape, and I grew up terrified of him. It's a miracle I'm not terrified of men in general. He was an alcoholic and very belligerent character, a lot like Trump, very narcissistic, very authoritarian, completely insensitive to other people. He was not a nice man, and he was very successful. He was a vice president of one of this country's biggest companies, a real corporate bully. And from the outside, our family looked normal. We had money, we had food, we had a house, I had clothes, but it was not normal. And it took me a long time to realize how not, because whatever you're growing up with, that's normal. Takes a
Right.
long time to realize how screwed up it is. So I just read a little short thing from my
Yes.
book, Let the More Loving One Be Me, which people can get on Amazon. I have a friend whose brother sexually abused her every night. He warned, don't tell. For years she didn't. When she finally did, her family fell apart. I have a friend who was raped by her live-in grandfather. She told no one for years. I have another friend whose stepfather, a former priest, shoved her headfirst into a snowbank when she was 6, nearly suffocating her. He then raped her when she was 11. I have a friend who was first raped by her father, an MD and a university professor, when she was 3. She's still grappling with it. She's 80 now. Her sister committed suicide. These are women whom I happen to know well. I did not seek them out to make a point. Only over time did I learn their stories, and stories from other women friends too. Sexual violence, defined as sexual activity in which consent is not obtained or freely given, is widespread, affecting millions of people, most of them female. That's every year, according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. CDC figures show that nearly 1 in 5 American women experiences completed or attempted rape during her lifetime. Other data show that 1 in 3 female rape victims experience rape for the first time between 11 and 17 years of age. The worst thing, I think, is that more than 90% of child sexual abuse victims know their attackers. In fact, 78% of perpetrators were the parents of the victims, and that comes from the United States Department of Justice. That's very sobering.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even know that. That is from their own actual parent. Yeah, so it's
Yes.
unfortunate. My father had passed away when I was a baby. And so my mom, she saw me like drawing pictures of like a family, it was me and then a man and her and then my siblings, and then so she thought like, oh, maybe she needs to have a father figure. And it yeah, I wish I really never did, but you know what? I had to go through what I went through in order for myself to learn and then maybe, I mean, obviously heal from that and then help others who possibly are going through or have gone through that or still going through trauma from that as well. Because a lot of people, I like a lot of my friends too, same thing. And then they go towards like drugs and they go towards alcohol because they don't know how to take it. I was going to go ahead and ask you, like your books, such as Exercise is Medicine, touch on like health and holistic well-being. How has your understanding of health, both physical and emotional, evolved through your personal experiences, as shared in your new memoir?
Well, I was a science writer and medical writer for the Boston Globe for many years. And I sort of came at the health thing from a physical medical point of view. My first book was about chronic pain, which, like sex abuse in a way, is not recognized as much as it should be in this country. 100 million Americans, by official figures, have some form of chronic pain, not totally debilitating in some cases, but a high percentage do have chronic pain. And a lot of them actually do need opioid drugs to control their pain. The problem is that a lot of people end up not pain patients necessarily, but street users can end up abusing opioids, and that's a horrendous problem. But an almost equally horrendous problem is chronic pain, which is not addressed sufficiently in this country. So we really have two epidemics, the opioid abuse and chronic pain. And because of the opioid abuse epidemic, a lot of genuine pain patients are under medicated when they should be medicated more for their pain. I came about writing about exercise because I've been an exerciser my whole life. So my book, Exercise is Medicine, delves into a lot of the molecular biology, the basic underlying science of all the things that exercise does for different parts of the body, different hormones in the body, different molecules in the body. It's really as close to a miracle drug, in quotes, as you could find. It does so many good things. And yet many, many people do not exercise. There's a sort of an epidemic, if you will, of sedentary behavior. Many people do not exercise nearly enough, which is one of the reasons we have a huge problem with obesity in this country. We have a problem of sedentariness and obesity, and both of those are medical disaster. Obesity leads to a lot of other things, including diabetes, heart disease, a lot of inflammatory conditions. So we're really a medical mess in this country. And that's why I wanted to write about exercise, because that is a major way people can control their weight. And it's also kind of a bridge to your question about mental health. Exercise, you probably don't want to get this scientific in your program, but exercise acts directly on the brain, which produces a chemical that they call miracle grow for the brain. I won't give you the technical name for it, but in my book you can understand that it's they call it miracle grow for the brain. It literally makes new neurons, new nerve cells grow, and it has a major positive effect on combating depression. There is a lot of evidence that exercise can be as effective as some of the medications people take for depression. So it's huge. It's also an important way to ward off or to lower the risk for Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So it has huge effects for mood and thinking on the brain. The book that you had trouble pronouncing
Yeah.
is,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. The book is called CRISPR,
CRISPR.
CRISPR', and it's a medical thriller about CRISPR, CRISPR, which is a fairly new, several years old method for changing our DNA in a major way that it can get rid of some bad genes and help put in a good version of those genes instead. There's already considerable evidence this can be used to potentially cure sickle cell anemia, which is a horrible disease that mostly affects Black Americans. It has been used already to treat a hereditary eye problem in a number of people, and it has huge potential for treating a lot of other inherited diseases. So all that is part of what I've been interested in. And in terms of the mental health, you know, we were talking about sexual abuse and you mentioned alcoholism. 1 in 5 American adults grew up as a child in an alcoholic family. And totally aside from sexual abuse, growing up in an alcoholic family is quite dangerous for people's mental health. Often there's a lot of denying that the alcoholic is there. You get a sort of a warped sense of reality. There's a lot of anger that goes along in an alcoholic family, and children suffer, and they suffer in silence, and they grow up thinking that everybody goes home to an angry alcoholic father or an alcoholic mother who's lying on the couch all day drinking and swearing at her kids.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of other mental health issues that people don't talk about. Sometimes there's suicide in a family, and that affects the surviving adults and surviving children. There are a lot of mental health problems in this country that aren't adequately treated and can be. That's the hard thing. I mean, you found solace and support in your church. A lot of people find it through therapy. Therapy costs money. It should be way more accessible than it is. And, you know, for people who grew up with alcoholism, there are a lot of good programs for adult children of alcoholics. So there is help out there. Sometimes it's hard to access. A lot of times it's expensive, but it's life-saving and very important for people. So I'll shut up.
No, I love that. And
Too long.
you're so right about the exercise. You know, I have a lot of pain while I've been in many car accidents, none my fault. And I always been like hit from the back, from the side. So a lot of whiplash and back injury. And I notice over time, if I don't move my body, it starts hurting a lot. But once I start moving around, stretching, you know, even just walking, like walking in nature is so therapeutic for myself. I feel so much better. The only soreness I would get was just from walking, just my muscle, you know, and I'm a massage therapist. I know how to get those knots out, but it's so therapeutic. And exercise, I think a lot of people are missing the physical activity in their day. We're humans. We're not meant to be sedentary, just in front of our computers all day. We need to move around, you know, we need to socialize, we need to do things, you know, whether it's gardening, that's exercise, cleaning the house, that's still exercise, walking. I love doing videos at home too. You know, if I don't see my trainer, like we'll do something online and I'll be working out, and it's so, you feel so much better. I always feel so much
We
better.
do.
So it's a
And,
good point that
you mentioned nature. A lot of people live cooped up in apartments in a concrete city, and nature counts too. And so many people don't have access to that. But that can be very healing for people too.
You're
It sounds
right.
like you've done a lot in a lot of different paths to get yourself in a better place.
Oh yes, definitely. And what's funny is like 'cause I live in a city and downtown's not too far from here. It's just straight, but behind me is a bunch of mountains that is just like so beautiful that if I want to escape from all of the chaos, 'cause it is chaotic over here, I can easily I have access to the hills right behind me. And so it's always nice
That's great.
to get away and bring the kids. They love the outdoors. They have a beautiful playground and it's surrounded by trees, beautiful trees. And it's just like, oh, I feel like I'm always at home there.
Great. That's great.
Yeah. So you touched on the importance of therapy in your journey of healing. Could you share how therapy has been instrumental in reshaping your worldview and personal growth?
Oh, yeah. It's been essential. I don't think I could have done the journey that I think you're never done, but it's been very, very important. And not just to acknowledge the truth of what my father did, but also, as you mentioned briefly when you had the intervention, I don't know how that intervention happened, who started it, and what happened, but you did say that your mother didn't quite believe you. Um, that is very common.
Mm,
And in retrospect, now with the wisdom of age, which I have, and you might have a little of, you look much younger than I am.
mm,
Um, in some ways, the more damaging aspect of growing up in the family I did was not my father's abuse, it was my mother's denial and neglect
mm,
of what was going on. Where did she think her husband was going to half naked every night?
mm.
She had a teenage daughter. What did she think her husband was doing without his clothes on? He
Right.
was naked. He was half naked every night. Where did she think he was going? When I finally told her about it, she said I should have told her. But I was too scared. I did not believe that she would intervene on my behalf. I'm positive she would not have, because to have done so would have jeopardized her marriage.
Mhm.
And that was the most important thing to her, even though she was married to a bad guy with money, but a bad guy. And I think I know of several cases where the daughters in a situation like you were and I was, uh, were more harmed by their mother's lack of protection than what their father or stepfather or other male actually did.
Yeah.
One friend of mine, uh, it was her mother who set her up for being abused by her uncle ever since she was age 4. And the mother set it up. Why, I have no idea. Um, but I don't think the mothers in these situations should get off scot-free. Um,
Yeah.
sometimes the wives were being abused as well, and they
Mm.
were in fear. One of my good friends, she was married twice to very abusive guys. One of them a doctor, broke both her arms. Um, sometimes if the wife is being abused, she won't protect the daughters or even the sons from abuse. So it's really complicated. It's not just the abuser per se that can be really harmful in a family. It's who is not protecting their children and sometimes not protecting herself.
Right. And I just wondered, are they
Right.
just oblivious to it? Do they not sense anything or do they just want to keep quiet? It's like it confuses me. Like, if you know your child's in danger, like as a mother myself, like I would be like on it, like that's what
Right.
baffles me.
It's denial and fear.
Denial and fear. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I was just thinking back, I'm like, how did she not know anything? And I mean, then the other siblings, like my other siblings are very much older than me. I have a brother that's 11 years older, sister that's 10 years older, and another brother that's 7 years older. So I was like the baby of the family and the one that was damaged. I'd say the
Yeah.
black sheep of the family for sure.
No, no, you were not the black sheep.
Yeah, no, that's what I always called myself before. I was like, oh, I'm the black sheep of the family. It's like, but you're right. No, you're right. I actually have refrained my mind to not think that. It's like, you know what? I'm probably the one who's brought more awareness to the family than anything. Because now everyone is aware of everything and doing what I'm doing now. They probably see me like, whoa, who is this person now? It's like, yeah. So I feel like a lot of people who have gone through a lot of pain have like a lot of purpose in life.
Yes, yes. But it's amazing if your family can see you in this good way, because telling the truth, the reason a lot of abused children don't tell the truth, or even teenagers, is because it can destroy the truth can destroy the family, and
Mhm.
probably should, in my view.
You're
uh,
right.
but it's dangerous to tell the truth, but ultimately it's the only safe thing to do when you're in a safe enough place to tell it.
Right,
But
right.
it can mean disrupting the family. I mean, as the examples that I read, the women were afraid that it would destroy the family. I was afraid, to the extent that I even thought about or knew what it would be like. I mean, I couldn't tell the truth. I didn't even know that it was bad. I just,
Mhm.
I felt awful. But it took getting out of the family to think, this is not right. This is not a normal family. But what you grow up with is all you know.
Exactly. And it's like, who do you talk to? You just talk to yourself. It's like you just bottle everything inside for so long. And then once it comes out, it's like, and but
And
it
you
needs to
have to,
come out.
you're in, it's dangerous to know, to admit, it takes a lot of courage to face the truth, as you were saying, and as I did in therapy. Um,
Right.
I didn't realize how dangerous my family was until I got away from it enough emotionally and physically to be safe enough to look at it. And I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yes. Now, having shared your story, what message or insight do you hope readers, especially those who have experienced trauma, will take away from your book?
Well, I hope people do get the book. And also it has a very hopeful message. If you read the book, you'll see that I have actually been extremely lucky in love and in work, which are the two things that Freud said are the most important in life, and I completely agree with that. Um, I've I'm on my third marriage. The first one ended in divorce, but it was a very amicable divorce. We just got married too young. There was no really lasting animosity. My second husband was great, and he died of cancer
Mm.
a long time ago, about 17 years ago. And before he died, he wrote a letter urging me to remarry if I had the chance. And it was really like one good man suggesting that I find another good man, which was a huge gift to me. And I did. I'm now happily married for the third time to a wonderful man. Um, so I think that's really an important message for your listeners and your followers, because despite what I grew up with, I've managed in large part through my own emotional work and introspection and writings and therapy to know how to pick good men, and to learn how to trust and be available for more intimacy than I would have ever been capable of before. And in my work as a journalist, journalism basically is about finding the truth and telling the truth. And I think the truth is the most important thing. And we're in a bad situation in this country because of Trump and his lies, and people believing his lies, and those lies being repeated by his collaborators, for lack of a better word. And journalism is really a safeguard against all those lies. Telling the truth is really immensely important, and I think journalists who do that are really noble. And I feel it's a very noble profession, and that in both my personal life and professional life, truth turns out to be a really driving force.
Yes. This is it. The truth shall set you free. Yeah.
And as Woody Allen says, but first it will make you miserable.
Oh, yes.
But it does set you free. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, where
Yeah.
can our listeners follow you or buy your books? I know you had mentioned Amazon
Buy
before.
my book. It's called Let the More Loving One Be Me. There's a picture of it with my little notes. It's
Yeah.
on Amazon. You can also get it through my website, which is judyforeman.com. And people often spell my name wrong, so I'll spell it JUDYF as in Frank, OREMAN.com. Don't forget the E. Now, everybody forgets it, and then I don't get the emails. So, yeah, I have a very nice website that you mentioned at the beginning. People can also get it there. And also, there are a number of I had a book presentation last night, and that's going to be up on YouTube soon. So you can probably by tomorrow. So you can also find out about it that way.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, I'm looking forward to your book. It just came out yesterday, so yes. Well,
Brand new.
thank you so much, Judy. I appreciate you.
Thank you, and more power to you too. I'm inspired by you.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very